Hello, welcome to week 12 of classroom assessment. Thank you for working at the beginning of last week to get your data analysis done, and I look forward to reading those. And I will be providing you some detailed feedback on them so that you can use that to make any needed changes and then add that to your final research report. So please be looking for the comments that I give you back. Hopefully everyone did well, but I will add some detailed comments. So just kind of keep that in mind. So this week we will be continuing on. We will be reading chapter 13, which focuses on standardized testing. And so be sure that you read chapter 13, that you take the time to watch the video lectures on chapter 13. Be sure to read this supplemental reading. It's something that you will be tested over, so make sure that you've read that and take notes on it so that you can be prepared for the exam. And then your large assignment this week, and this is worth quite a few points, so those of you who really want to increase your grade or maybe worried about the current grade you have, it's important that you spend ample time on this assignment. And so this is something for those of you in the who are in the 3183 section. This will be going into TK 20, and this must be submitted in order for you to complete the class. So it's critical that you get it finished. And it just shows your ability to interpret a data set and make decisions about a data set. So I've recorded a video within this that will explain some details, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it now too, just so you have an understanding. When I created this class about 6 years ago, one thing that our dean, Dr. Capps, wanted to be sure that students would do is be able to look at data from the STAR test and be able to interpret it and then make decisions about it. So after you have a chance to read the chapter that talks about different types of data, your goal is to provide recommendations for students. So demonstrate that you understand what the scores mean, and then demonstrate that you can make decisions about the data. So the data set is 8th grade mathematics assessment. It's from an actual school, and there's a raw score, a percent score, a scaled score, and then there's the number of students from each group who passed, which is the satisfactory group. And then there's the ones who achieved in the top 5%. So it's a little bit different from the textbook. The textbook talks about percentile, but the data set that we have from the STAR talks about the percent. So that's the percent correct, not the percentile. So the first thing you'll do is interpret the data. You can use the videos, my explanation to do that. And then the next thing, be sure that you include an explanation for the data that's most interpretable. That's one of the things that's on your on the rubric that I'm using to grade. So just explain whether it's the raw score or the percent or the satisfactory, how interpretable each one is, if it's the one that you would use to make decisions about students. Give a rationale to explain it. And then here's some examples. So you're going to be completing this chart. Here's an example of something that you might write for the raw score to explain what it is, explain how interpretable it is, and then give a little bit of detail about the scores from the raw score. You don't have to mention every single score, but give some detail of the score. And then after you have done that for each group and each score, or each part of the table, then you're going to provide a couple of overall recommendations. Now, I'll say that, if every student in one group failed, then that would be a good recommendation. But if there was a group of 2 and one passed and one did not, then that probably wouldn't be worth a recommendation. And then also don't forget that a lot of groups are overlapping. So I'll show you in a moment the chart, but the chart has different ethnic groups, different genders, and then other things to look at, like the students who have failed the first year, special education. So realize that there may be a student who falls into Hispanic, special education, ESL, and male. It may be the same student who's in all 4 categories. So you can't compare males to Hispanics or special ed to females or whatever. So just be sure that you only compare, one ethnic group to the other or one gender to the other. Okay. So here's some questions to think about, but make sure when you make recommendations that those recommendations are, the 3 most important things that you would focus on as a teacher. Okay. So be sure to read all these. Here's another example of a recommendation to be offered. And then this is the rubric. It looks a little bit different from rubrics you've seen in my class because this is one of the core required assignments for the college. So this is a rubric from the college. So it goes opposite the way that my rubrics normally do. It goes from lowest to highest, but make sure that you've interpreted the data, you've identified gaps by explaining it. Be sure that you make a plan for future instruction, which will be part of your recommendations. Make sure you explain the rationale preferred with specific examples of why, and then that you have clear communication. Okay, so that it's a pretty short rubric for this particular assignment. And then once you have gone through that, this is the actual data set that you need to look at that shows you all the different pieces of the data. This is the chart that you'll complete. If you want to make your own, it doesn't have to be identical to this, but I just want to make sure that it has all of the different spaces for the different kinds of data, and then has space at the bottom for the different recommendations. So make sure that you explain what the total students are, what raw, scale, percent, satisfactory, advanced, use examples for each, and then definitely follow the example that I've given you in my instructions. And then for overall recommendations for students, just, pick out, the 3 biggest recommendations, again, following the example that I've given you. Now for further explanation on the data set, I have this example here. It's a video I recorded that's about 6 minutes long, and I highly recommend that you watch this and I explain each component of the data set. It's an example, so it's not the actual data set. And then these are the notes that go along with that. So I highly recommend that you watch that too. And if you have questions throughout the week, please be sure to come to my office hours. I'll schedule some towards the end of the week. I won't have time to look over every single person's data literacy assignment, but if you come to office hours, I can take a look at it for sure. But post questions in the discussion board if you have general questions about the assignment. But I'm happy to meet with you during office hours or even an individual time to talk a little bit more about it if you need some specific detailed questions. So hopefully that helps, and I hope that you have a great week in getting this assignment completed. Thanks.